Yo, hey everybody, welcome back. Episode 53 of the Legends and Dragons podcast. Here in First Texas, from the Legends Lair, the Chance Burlson,
the James Clavis,
and Kyle Hessler. Glad to be here. Thanks, buddy. Man, I'm glad. I'm excited. Hey, well, I wanted to talk about something real quick before we go into all the other stuff. Last episode, or maybe 2 episodes ago, you were talking about how great of a driver you are. Like, you're the best driver, like, in the world. Self-proclaimed. Today, as I was going to pick up Kyle, because he dropped his car off there, it was about Jiffy Lube, and I was going to pick him up real quick. I just want you guys to know, if you tailgate me, we're going 5 miles an hour. I just want you right now. I'm just telling you right now. If you want to tailgate me, we're going so slow. Like,
there's no reason to tailgate anybody when almost in every case you can go around.
You can go around.
Well, especially right now when we're having our Texas monsoons.
But the problem is that if you can't go around them,
Yeah.
tailgating them will make it go slower.
Oh, that's exactly right. I'm like,
Because they will do just like you.
yeah, everyone's going.
Well, and it's not safe. It's not safe to tailgate.
I would, you know what's scary? What's scary? It's raining. Keywords.
Hey, before we get started, can I say something?
Go ahead, man.
Can I
You will go ahead, man.
can I be the first?
You can be the first.
Congratulations. You
Ah.
blue belt, brother.
Thank you.
I don't know if
Thank you.
everyone knows this, but that's a huge step, man.
The Chance Burlson, ladies and gentlemen, just a couple days ago, on Sunday, got promoted
I did.
to well-deserved.
Let's not get carried away.
Well-deserved.
I got promoted to blue belt. We'll leave that.
How does it feel? How does it feel?
Awful.
Why? Why does it feel awful?
Well, like I was telling you before we started, I really thought that I loved my white belt because I'm humble, but I should have known better. When I started patting myself on the back for being so humble. And Philip was like, you only like the white belt because nobody expects anything out of white belt. I liked the no pressure of having a white belt.
Yeah. What kind of pressure do you think there is as a blue belt, though?
Well, no, it's not from the rest of the world. I put it on myself,
Okay.
But there is.
Well,
like,
clearly.
Yeah, there is. Like people will come for your
you
dad.
two boys are blue belts, yeah?
Yeah. Like you're not, you basically,
I know.
Those
stripes are.
You'll know what I'm
Those
talking
4
about.
stripes
When it
are-
goes on,
Yeah.
you'll be like, yes.
Uh-oh. Oh.
Yeah. So the thing is this is probably the first time in my life, and I'll say this unapologetically, this is probably the first time in my life that I can honestly see myself going all the way in intensity.
Yeah, dude. That's what I'm talking about.
Because
But I'm not going to let you quit. And you're not going to let me quit. And Phil's not going to let
I
you
don't
quit.
I don't really know if you know anything about me, but when I get my heels sunk in, I'm stubborn. Yeah. But I talked to Hanshi when I first started private lessons with Philip.
Yeah.
I talked to Hanshi, who's my main instructor out of Sacramento. And he said, and I was like, I don't know if I get, black belt just see. He's like, no. Get a blue belt. He said, just get a blue belt.
Yeah.
He said, because here's the thing. With a blue belt, you are like a ninja compared to anyone who doesn't do jiu-jitsu.
Reckon.
You can really do whatever you want to somebody who has no jiu-jitsu training. And he said, so that is a great baseline. Just set that as a goal. So really, that was my only goal the whole time.
Yeah.
But now that I'm here, I'm like, I could probably do purple. I could probably get a purple. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I can see myself. The thing is, I have to be way more careful than your average bear.
Yeah.
Doing jujitsu,
Right.
because what happens is, like, how old are you, Kyle?
I'm 34.
Okay, so you can still be so stupid.
Oh yeah, I am.
No, I am. But at 34,
Oh,
you don't
yeah.
pay for the stupidity the way I do. And what do you do for a living?
I'm a sales rep.
Okay, so if you have brachial neuropathy and you can't move your right arm, you can still sail.
Yes.
Okay, I run a karate school. So when I get hurt in jiu-jitsu, it affects everything in my life. And so at 52, when I tweak something, it puts me off of everything.
Yeah.
I can't afford to do what other people in class can do. I can't get hurt like that
Yeah.
without it negatively affecting my life in a real bad way. in a real bad way. So I have to control who I roll with, how I roll, and because I'm stupid enough to get out of control, like ramping it up.
Yeah.
But the 25 or 35-year-old guy I'm rolling with, he's not going to pay for that later the way I'm going to pay for it.
Yeah.
And so that's why I do private lessons, is that I couldn't go live roll with people in class without getting hurt all the time.
Yeah, because you work it.
But they weren't hurting me.
Right.
I was hurting me
Yeah, you're pushing.
in my ignorance. And I call it panic framing. Because, framing is super important.
Yeah.
Right? Well, I have Pullen syndrome. It's a birth defect. So I'm missing stuff on the left side of my body. So when I frame, if I'm framing from technique and skill and experience, it's fine. When I panic frame to get somebody, I pop my spine out, I tweak my neck, and then I'm like Sloth from the Goonies for the next 3 months.
Well, you're like the Tin Man as well, right? Did you go to the Wizard and get yourself a farce because you're missing stuff?
So I have to be a little more selective with how I do it. But it's working. I've been doing it for 18 months with Philip, and you're my partner. And
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. I listened to this, and you probably all saw the post as well. He got his blue box on his dad's birthday.
I know. He does.
So
I know.
Dude, that right there, just everything lined up, man. I was so happy.
You know what I like about that story, though, is like jiu-jitsu somewhat uniquely, partially because just in my experience of different martial arts, there's been a lot of watering down.
Of course.
All that stuff. But one thing that I've seen in jiu-jitsu, and when I tell my whole story, it'll make a little better sense, is jiu-jitsu is very much like your belt is your story.
Right.
Right? So it's been interesting for me at Henzo, formerly. But watching, there's a couple guys.
We all come from somewhere.
Yeah. There's a couple guys that even today when we were rolling this morning, I told one guy in particular, Luke, I was like, dude, you came in here, you knew nothing. And now I'm like, you're actually one of my favorite roles, and you present danger to me.
Yeah.
But it's also interesting because like my blue belt tells a different story. Your blue belt has a different connotation. It has a different representation. And that's something I think is, I don't want to say it's exclusive to jiu-jitsu, because obviously I'm doing jiu-jitsu consistently. So I know the story a little bit better, but it's the belt in jiu-jitsu seems to have a representation for a story a little bit more uniquely.
It does.
And that doesn't make it better or worse.
No, it does.
Different.
Yeah, but different in a good way.
Right.
But they are trying to water down jiu-jitsu because of the popularity.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
No,
Because there's a big business. It's a big business. I'd also but what I love is that the majority of jiu-jitsu will not allow that to happen.
But do you think that the change is good?
I don't think so.
You don't think it's good?
So I'll tell this part of my story real quick.
No, tell
But I can get into it whatever, but we can stay on this for a second.
Yeah. Let's tell me.
I had about a 5-6 year gap
Okay.
where the old jiu-jitsu I was doing was with my dog. Just throwing up triangles, kind of playing with them.
Yeah.
And I noticed coming back to it that it's a lot more different.
Okay.
And it's way more of what I think the caricature of jiu-jitsu is, like the guy that's like, let's pick a fight, and then he drops to his butt. Right. And maybe it's just because I have a strong wrestling background and all that. I just noticed, like, when I travel and I go to these different schools, that it's just like, wow, this is really soft. There's a lot of, let's play jiu-jitsu. It's not even when we're rolling, we're playing. Like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to play with this. I'm going to do this. It's like, that's not really, I don't want to say jiu-jitsu is meant to be a grind, but I went to an MMA school last year. Now, I had a bad experience because kid threw a knee, which is why you shouldn't go to MMA schools for jiu-jitsu. If you just want to do
Oh, he was doing any in jiu-jitsu.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that was more, the training they had was more akin to what I had been used to 5-6 years ago. Or I guess it was longer then, but in when I first got into jiu-jitsu, 2008, 2009, it was more like that. Not an aggressive, but just how you attack things.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think because of the influence of like sport, but also YouTube videos.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm all for people trying stuff they watch, but you go to like an Eddie Bravo school, and those guys are really good. But if you're not at that school trying like a Bravo choke, you're just looking like a goofball.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're good at it, you're good at it. And I want to encourage people to try stuff.
Sure.
But what I've noticed coming back to jiu-jitsu, it's just a lot more play. And when you listen to like John, I was saying his name wrong, Danaher, that he talks about that. And I think it's true.
So I went down a rabbit hole the other day about, they were asking, and I'm sure it was a podcast that I was watching. I love that I don't have the stamina to watch an entire podcast of anybody, but I will watch clips from podcasts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they were talking about for fighting, literally street fighting, what is the absolute best martial art? And the answer surprised me.
Can I guess? What? Was it Muay Thai?
Yeah.
Was it wrestling?
It was just.
See,
And the reason they said wrestling was not necessarily because wrestling is better than jiu-jitsu.
yeah.
It's the way wrestling is taught and grown
And drilling.
in this Shark Tankment. It's like the way they do wrestling all through school, it's like they're trying to make people quit. I mean, they're grinding them so hard. They're like, we don't want the ones that could possibly suck to even stay here. So we're trying to just burn off all the chaff. And he said, now, if jiu-jitsu was taught like that, it might actually be better. But because of the methodology of training, quiet down, Nikki. The methodology of the crucible that they train wrestling, it just burns all weakness away. And the fact that there's so much takedown defense in wrestling, and that's one of the things that jiu-jitsu, I think, used to have more.
Was that the takedown?
Was takedown defense, and because of sport, they're like, we're going the Bradley way, so I'll just go ahead and get the ground. Which you don't want to volunteer to go to the ground in a street fight. You want to be good at the ground in a street fight, but to pull guard when there's 10 people standing around you in a circle
dangerous.
is bad.
Yeah.
But if you go to the ground trying to maintain top position, and jiu-jitsu does not seem to stress you want to get top position if you can, as much as wrestling, right?
Yeah,
Would
and
you agree?
I would 100% agree. And let me add to that. I was, this is a little story. I was getting adjusted yesterday, and the guy was telling me, he was asking me when I told him why I was getting adjusted, he was like, do people really, like, he was trying to ask some questions. He was clearly interested. He said, yeah, my buddy was just at a bar a couple weeks ago, and they were kind of beefing, and the guy was like, all right, you want to go? And he dropped to his butt. And the guy backed off, just kind of like, I don't know what this guy's doing. And it's funny to actually hear that somebody tried that. But I mean, like, the reality is, like,
in the street.
yeah, in the street or in a bar.
At a bar.
Now,
The guy dropped to his butt in the bar.
yeah, now here's my thing. Like, at a bar, that guy could be a red belt. And I'm like, dude, people beefing at a bar over nothing, sports, a slight comment, you don't know if that guy's going to throw a shot glass in. Who cares if you're on your butt?
Or his friend to kick your head like a soccer
Yeah.
ball.
That's the thing right there.
Because that's what I would do.
And I think my thing on the play side, like this is something specific I see, is like when a new guy comes in, we had this guy, Bryce,
Please.
come in, and he's a wrestler, he has a different background. He's not playing, but he also doesn't know, like, when a butterfly gets put on his thigh, he wasn't quite sure what to do. But because he's a wrestler, he just kind of crushed it. But when we have new people come in that are like, they're tense, they're squirrely, they have that white belt squirreliness, they don't want to play. So even if they don't know what they're doing, you try to set something up. You try to set up a trap, a butterfly sweep or something like that. They're not playing that because they don't know. You're assuming that they're going to think like a jiu-jitsu guy. You assume I'm setting this trap because I know what they want to do, but they don't know what they're doing. And so sometimes, like we've all experienced it when we're working with a white belt who's brand new, doesn't know what they're doing. There's a squirreliness to them. You can control them, especially if you tire them out. But if you're trying to play with them, you're not going to have the same success like with a blue belt. Like I might tap somebody on my level multiple times before I might tap a new guy, just because he's not putting his head where I'm expecting. He's not doing this. And so I always
He's not following the script.
Yeah, he's not following the script.
Yeah.
So it's
interesting, yeah.
But the reason I said, I guess, Muay Thai is because of the clinch. That's my thing, is like if you had a good clinch, it kind of gives you the same upside as like control on the ground.
Sure, completely.
But that's
The clinch is grappling for your feet.
right. But that's an apples to oranges sort of thing. It's somewhat similar, but it's not quite the same. But I think jiu-jitsu, I would still rather have everyone who wants to have. I'd rather have people train jiu-jitsu than carry a gun sometimes.
Sure.
Only if they're not going to practice with the gun.
Well, and the other thing is with wrestling, I think that and I'm one of those people who doesn't think that martial arts necessarily are Asian. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know that jiu-jitsu, by way of Brazil, via Brazil, is what it is. But I think it kind of stopped being Brazilian jiu-jitsu sometime over the last couple of decades because of the influence of all the rest of the parts of the world. It's just become jiu-jitsu now. But I believe boxing is a martial art. It's the oldest martial art. The cave paintings go back. Boxing goes back. Boxing and wrestling. But if you think about all martial arts, Kyle, Muay Thai is like the wrestling of stand-up.
Yes.
The way it's taught is traumatizing and abusive and way too much for your average person. Now, if you had a Muay Thai gym in the mid-cities or Colleyville or something, I'm talking about a gym in Thailand at Lumpini Stadium.
Where they're a fight culture.
That's what they're training for the fight on the weekend. That's the point.
Yeah.
And if you're not interested in that, go home.
A 14-year-old will have 100 fights before.
Right. Yeah. Wrestling is done like that.
Correct.
And so I think it's the methodology that makes it so effective.
Couldn't agree.
But I don't know if it's better.
I don't either. I definitely think that it's circumstantial, right? And you go to different parts. I travel a lot. And so I was just in Arizona and they trained. I've been to Arizona a bunch of times.
There's a lot of good schools and everything.
Absolutely. The one I went to in Tucson was just like really solid. It wasn't, I don't think they're producing like the next elite guy. I don't know if we are though, right? It's not like I'm saying we're better. But when usually I'm in Phoenix, I go to a gym where some former MMA guys would go. And it's like they're submission wrestling as much as it is jiu-jitsu. They just call it jiu-jitsu. And it's just way more aggressive. It's way more attacking. I went to Pittsburgh a few months ago. I went at a night class. I was just open roll. And I was like, I'm not coming back the next morning. This is like, they're really good. And I wasn't ready for it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's because Pittsburgh is a high wrestling culture.
Sure.
And those guys, I can feel like how those guys roll. Same thing up when I go to Minnesota. And that's where I'm from originally.
Really?
Yep.
That's interesting. I just opened a letter from Minnesota.
Oh.
From the district attorney. I got a warrant.
Yeah, we're in Minnesota. You may not want to.
And so I called them. I called them because clearly it's a case of mistaken identity.
Right.
Right. It's a failure to wear seatbelt. There's a seatbelt taken.
Yeah.
And so I called. I didn't get anybody, thank goodness, because I'm like, I have not been in Minnesota. I have not. And then I looked at the date of the infraction. It was 2015. I drove to see Skylar in Wisconsin, and I drove through.
So I'm glad they're wasting taxpayer dollars tracking you down.
I'm like, I'm not doing anything about this at all. I'm not. Yeah, there's just because I would never drive 10 years.
But you are admitting that you were there.
Oh, 100%. But I wasn't there within the last decade.
No, but there's definitely something to that where like you go to different parts of the country and it's like you can feel the influence of and this speaks to maybe the larger point you were saying about like where martial arts come from. Like boxing is somewhat of a gentleman's sport. Now it's somewhat of a misnomer because you go watch Gangs in New York. Right. That's how boxing used to be. But the whole idea of like we're just using our fists is more of a gentleman's thing, which is where there's the influence of like English and all that stuff. Whereas like Thailand, that's a fight culture. We don't have a lot of fight cultures left in the world.
I know.
But the ones that do, Mexico and all that stuff, they produce guys that are hungry because that's all they have.
Right.
It's just different.
It's that or the cartel. So my friend
Or Lucha Libre.
Yeah. So, but one of the things that I've noticed is that we live in a life that is so results driven.
Yeah.
That the ends always justify the means. So if you come into my school, I can emotionally and mentally and physically abuse you into being a national champion.
Right.
But at what cost? Right. In other words, am I creating a high-performing athlete But the cost of that is 50 years of therapy it's going to take you to come back from the PTSD.
Yeah.
So I don't think the ends justify the means. I don't think that what we should be trying to do is create champions at the expense of the human.
I think that there is obviously, we're talking about jiu-jitsu's change. I think there needs to be obviously a balance, right? Because you're bringing families now onto the mats, and there should be your fight schools, right? That are producing champions, and you want to produce a champion, cool. I mean, it's kind of like Valdez, right? Valdez, he would say, Jim, if you started later, like him and I were talking one day. He goes, I would tell an adult go to Chance's school, because we at Excel we play pretty hard. You know that so he has said, and he has told adults, hey, come check out Legends. I think that there needs to be more of that, of course. Like, if a student walks into Henzo, right? And oh, man, do you want to be a national champ? We can get you there. However, maybe so-and-so would be a better fit. Or something.
Right.
There's this aims. That's just my point.
We can't be good at everything for every.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's definitely, I was talking to, at my church, there's a kid, he's like 18, 19. And we talk a lot of martial arts, and I gave him one of my punching bags, and his dad really doesn't want him to do any more fights. And he's had a couple, I guess. And the reason he doesn't want to is because he's really smart. He's managing a Chick-fil-A, he's going to school, he's high performing. And it's like, he doesn't need that. And I was telling the son, I'm with your dad, because I was trying to find the quote. I couldn't remember if the quote was from like Mike Tyson or Lennox Lewis, where it's like whoever it was, they were like, they didn't want their kids to fight because you don't have that hunger. And it's not because they're like, whatever, they've been born with a silver spoon in their mouth or anything. It's like, you don't need this. It's not that they don't want them to train or get better or like participate in it, but it's like, I don't want you to be in a ring with somebody who's like, I don't know where my next meal comes from if I don't get through you.
But see, the thing is that I think we have a false correlation of either or.
Right.
You got to be Mike Tyson or Stephen Hawking, right? But I know a story. I've heard a story about a guy who was a pretty high-level Taekwondo guy, won some national championships, got into kickboxing because he realized he couldn't use his hands, did some kickboxing matches, got a concussion or two, saw his friends getting concussions, and realized, wait a second, I have a good mind. I don't want to cause brain damage.
Yeah.
And then he focused his life in stand-up comedy. And none of the three of us would want to get in the ring with Joe Rogan.
I was like, I wonder. Yeah.
My point being is that he's still deadly dangerous at fighting.
Right.
You don't have to step in the ring to be good in martial arts.
Exactly.
It is a fast track, but the risk that you can't condition your brain. Kyle, you've done stand-up? Have you done any?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. You could stand toe-to-toe with me, and you could let me have everything you have. And I could raise my arms, and you could just slam kicks into my Jimmy's done it. Right?
Right.
I've conditioned my body to take that.
Yeah. A lot of calluses.
You can't do that to my head.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't condition your brain.
Right.
And one wrong shot, you have TBI, and your trajectory of your life is gone.
Yeah.
Why do that?
Well, that's
Unless you're hungry and you have
exactly. And I think that's where we're on the same page. And I would say, like, this is where I think I keep teasing it. We'll obviously get in my story, but that was my only regret in life, is thinking when I was done with fighting that I stepped completely away. And that's something beautiful about jiu-jitsu is like, and the kid I was telling, and I was telling his dad, is like, jiu-jitsu is fine. He won't get like, yes, of course, there's a risk. No, arm break and all that stuff. But like, you can have a normal life with any of that sort of thing.
Right.
But jiu-jitsu offers, it does have that, there's a fine line, the like weekend warrior sort of element, where it's like, I do want to encourage people to come into the mats. I do 6 a.m. So it's like, I wake up at 5, I train at 6, I'm done by 7. You would have no idea if I don't have any black eyes.
Right.
You would have no idea that's why I did that worry unless I told you. It's like, that's kind of how I want it to be at this stage of my life.
So you get to roll with Jeremiah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Jeremiah.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he just tested for black.
Did he? Yeah, that's right.
He got his black belt. That's good. Month ago. Exceptional fighter. You want to come spar with us someday? Would you ever? We have very light. We do 30%. Like we do light contact.
We can play spar.
That would be light.
I still have my top king.
Dude, come in and spar with us.
I've got Reyes gloves.
Dude, come in.
Yep.
But that was good stuff. Now let's talk about you.
Yeah.
So, where is you from, Minnesota?
I was born in Germany and then moved to Minnesota when I was like 3 or 4.
Do you pronounce it Minnesota?
No, I have fought tenaciously to get rid of that. Yeah.
So you're born in Deutschland.
Hey, yeah.
Thanks. You're in life. So military.
Yeah.
Where was your?
My dad was in the Air Force and he met my mom while they were over there. They just were together for like.
Was your mom?
She was just teaching overseas.
Oh, okay.
Teaching abroad, and the broad's name was Ava.
Yeah, that's nice. All right. So born in Germany, Minnesota. What brought you down here to Texas?
Fighting. Yeah, so I was like an ADHD kid, so I got into karate when I was in grade school, elementary, and I did like an after school.
Yeah, sure.
And I did tournaments and stuff and had good success. And then buddy of mine down the road neighbor kid introduced me to like pro wrestling, and then he got into amateur wrestling. So I kind of followed suit and did that. And so I did wrestling from grade school to high school. I didn't do it 1 year. And that was the 1 year that I found jiu-jitsu. So I started doing jiu-jitsu and training that. And then I found out Brock Lesnar, who was a big, at the time, people forget this, he was a huge name in pro wrestling, but had stepped away for a while.
That's right.
And then he came, all of a sudden it's like Brock Lesnar, he was going to do the NFL. And then a couple of years after that, he was like, I'm going to do fighting. And I was like, well, Chris, talk UFC. I didn't even know what UFC really was at the time. So this is like, 2007, 2008, something like that.
So you knew him from pro wrestling.
I knew him from pro wrestling, and I did a camp he taught at the U of M because he won the national championship in University of Minnesota. So I would do camps there, and he came by every once in a while. And so I was like, I love Brock, and now Brock's doing this thing, and I'm going to watch that. So then I start getting in my head of like fighting. I don't know. It's weird because it's not really in my DNA to be like, I'm not an overly aggressive guy. So I don't even know what kind of spurred me on to do that. But I was going to have my first fight in Minnesota at the time. It was really easy to get amateur fights. They would just sign people up. And it was all through commission. It wasn't the barnyard MMA, but it was like just a couple steps above that. And my total providence, my mom, who was not really an athlete of any sort as far as I know, she was doing like a kickboxing class, and she's like, oh, you should come with. And I'm thinking it's like Taibo or something like that.
Right.
And it was definitely like seminal moment of my life. I was like, for whatever reason, like, I'm going to go. So I went and met this guy named Stephen Wright, and we did a class, and it was Dutch style. He was a big Dutch style kickboxing guy. So I finished the class, and I told him like, hey, I'm got a fight scheduled. What do you think? And he's like, you should absolutely not take that fight, and you should train with me because your stand-up is not good and you're going to get hurt. And I was like, a fatherless son that I am, it was surprising that I actually listened to that kind of authority. Sure. So I took his advice, didn't take the fight, trained with him, and then did have a couple of fights. Well, also coincidentally, that guy became a huge mentor to me. More or less, I was kind of a Christian before then, but this was like the first time I felt like I was around a real Christian, started really listening to reading my Bible more and stuff. So this guy had a huge influence on me. Well, about a year and a half after I first met him and was training with him, I'd spent time at his house, all this different stuff, like really good mentor, mentee, coach, trainer, sensei, however you want to say that relationship. He got a job down in Texas. He had trained King Muhammad Lawal, I think it was. He was a Bellator fighter and stuff. He was training him overseas, and this guy recommended him for a job down here, training Johnny Hendricks, the Rochelle brothers, Jake and Jared. Chaz Skelly wasn't there at the time, but a bunch of guys that were like Oklahoma State national champions that were fighting already, and they needed striking help. So he came down here, and again, another like weird moment in my life. I just was like, okay, I guess I'm coming with you. And he never said like yes. He was like, I don't even remember if he said yes or no, but he obviously didn't stop me. So I came down with him, gave up my life in Minnesota, which didn't have much going on.
How old were you when you did that?
19.
Okay.
Yeah, I was right out of high school. I'd been kind of like, okay, college life's not for me. I'm training consistently. I don't really have much going on. And so I came down here, lived with him, and I got a full pro fighter experience. So I was in true fight camps. I was training every day. I was bartending and waiting tables on the weekends just to make ends meet. Because fighting for sure did not pay for that. I think the most I ever made was like $450 in a fight.
Yeah.
So I was training with him, but I got to do a bunch of cage fights. So I fought for XKO.
Really?
I fought for XKO back when they were at the aluminum, the outbuilding.
Yeah.
So that was hard because it was hot as hell.
Yeah,
that was a good one.
Yes.
So
I actually went to a couple of those.
Oh yeah. Oh, we'll have to look and see if you saw me. So had a couple MMA fights, and then, but because of Steven, I got really into kickboxing. So if there had been a path for me with kickboxing, I think it would. Yeah, but they're just like Texas. Texas had weird rules. Like a couple of the Texas fights I had, they had like there's a guy on the commission who was like, "Oh, I've been to Thailand. I know how they do things. They do 2-minute breaks in between rounds." Like it was insistent on all these rules and all these different things that were just like sound from. It was not familiar. No one has ever heard of this before. It says I have no problem saying this on record. That guy has no idea what he's talking about. So he made it up. He just made it up. So had a couple fights. Was doing okay. I was kind of a middling. I mean, I won more than I lost, but I was training with these guys that are elite athletes, elite wrestlers, and all this different stuff, and I just. I was 135 at the time. I didn't walk around to that, but that was my fighting weight. And these guys were like, Johnny Hendricks ended up winning the welterweight championship at 170. So it's like huge difference. And they were professionally cutting weight. So it was just like, it was kind of becoming clear that there's not a path for me. And then I had one fight where it was at XKO, and I thought I definitely lost. I think the first round, I'm pretty sure everyone gave me the second. And then the third, I was driving them into the cage, and they didn't give it to me. So I was like kind of bummed out about that. And I had a kickboxing fight 2 weeks after that. Same guy in the commission ref this fight. And we said, because it was basically we had a late minute replacement. I was supposed to fight a karate guy who would have been fine. And we placed it to a guy, Tristan Grimsley, who's really good. Ran into it a couple times since. But he was a jiu-jitsu guy, and he did a couple of MMA. So he took this fight. And we told them, and it was a stand-up fight. It was a stand-up fight. We told him in the back, like, look, we know how he fights. He's going to just want to do, like, throws and trips. And, like, the trips are fine, but he's just going to want to, like, do takedowns and stuff. So please, as the ref, can you keep an eye out for that? Score it when it's appropriate. Don't score it when it's not appropriate. Well, first round comes. I'm lacing him up, and all he's doing is grabbing me and just judo throwing me. I'm just letting him because I'm like, well, this doesn't count. And in between rounds, we're like, okay, ref. That's what we were trying to tell you. And he's like, I'll never forget it. I'm in a fight, and I'll never forget this. He goes, well, I can't stop him. I was like, me and my coach looked at him dead set, and we're like, then why are you in the ring? So anyway, I lost that fight. I still don't really even understand that, but it was kind of like that was like a cowboy down tall kind of fight. It was, it is what it is. And after that, I was just like so disheartened that I lost 2 fights in a row that I thought were close for sure, but I definitely thought I should have won both. And I was like, I don't see a path forward. So how old were you when you decided? I was just 24.
So you were 24. You were 24?
Yeah.
So after
23, 24.
When did you meet your wife?
20, I met her like later that year.
Okay.
So it was basically when that loss happened, I'm like, I need to commit to a profession.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I'm just going to bartend, take more shifts for now and try to find something else. And I happened to get into like a sales job. Okay. And that kind of started my sales career. And I just stopped training. And I remember I would like get off work on Fridays and I eat eat Jersey Mike's.
Sure.
The Giants. And I sit there, play video games all afternoon. And I'm like, I'm not a fighter anymore. I'm going to enjoy life. And that's how I got to where I'm at now. So I met my wife later that year.
Okay.
I went back and trained a couple times.
Yeah.
It just wasn't feeling it. And then she wasn't really feeling it either. And so I stepped away.
Was she martial arts?
No. We met through like church.
Okay.
So she knew I did that. She was attracted to it, but she wasn't. I don't think she kind of put the reality of like
the time factor.
Yeah. Well, the time factor and like he'd get hurt.
Yeah. And I'm going to have to
Yeah.
kind of watch this either directly or indirectly.
Yeah.
So basically, at 24, I stepped away. I stopped doing I stopped doing everything.
So 24, you meet, it's 23, 24, you meet your wife. You quit the fighting. So then you say, oh, here's jiu-jitsu.
So here's what happened. I was
tell me about that.
I was so again, like I still I would like do jiu-jitsu with my dog, and like I was like I still have an affinity for this. Like I still know what I'm doing.
Did you win? Or
Yeah,
did you not beat you?
he's not big enough to. But I would just like kind of goof off with him and all that.
Jimmy, what did you do? Oh, you guys keep talking, man. Just keep talking.
Got ants in your pants?
No, man, I dropped the little.
Wouldn't it happen if you weren't
Fuzzy?
You know what, man?
The mic condom?
The mic. Where's the mic condom?
So
Probably is somewhere. All right, go ahead.
So I was up in Moscow, Idaho, which is in my church's denomination is kind of like where it kind of got started. And so there's this guy, Doug Wilson. He's just a writer. He's a pastor. So they host a church conference. So we were going there every year for a few years, and we met this couple who we became really good friends with. They put us up every time we were staying up there. And we were just hanging out one of the Saturdays of this conference. Nothing was going on. He's like, hey, you used to do jiu-jitsu, right? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, let's go. They have an open mat. So I was like, I looked at my wife and she's like, you can go. That's fine. And I went. And it was like one of those experiences of like, you put that right in my vein, man. It was like, I was gassed. I was tired, but I was also like, oh, I still know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I still know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I came back and I looked at my wife and I'm like, if I found a place that was like 6 a.m, this is before we did have one kid. We had and I said, if I found a place that this wouldn't interrupt our lives, what would you think? She's like, yeah, go for it. Because I had picked up some other hobbies. I was doing like Spartan races. I was weightlifting, and I even was playing hockey there for a little bit, and then COVID killed that.
Yeah.
So I was doing a bunch of different sports and stuff, just keep, hobbies. But as soon as I was back on those mats, I'm like, oh, I guess this. And so I think I found a place in Arlington that had like morning classes like 2 or 3 times a week.
Okay.
It was fine.
Yeah.
And then they shut down morning because there was only like 3 of us showing up.
Yeah.
And I was having a good time. I think I competed with them a couple times. I think I did like 1 or 2 small competitions. And then I found you guys, or I found former known place. Because
Voldemort.
Yeah, Voldemort. I found Voldemort because because it was the only place that I could find in the area that had 6 a.m.
Yeah. And then you train on the leg mats.
Yeah.
Oh, so you came over here?
Yeah, I was over here.
So
Yeah.
you saw
Yep.
this
Oh, yeah.
construction before it happened?
This didn't exist a year ago.
No? Well, everything behind there existed a year ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
One of the things that I found that is the best for my mental, I love that mental health is getting the
Yes.
publicity now. It really should have always been getting this, but I think that a lot of times it's still misunderstood. And what I mean by that is there seems to be, for me, a very strong connection between my mental health and my willingness to do things I don't want to do. Absolutely. So when we talk about self-care, most people in their mind, they think like bubble baths and candles and, and soft music and manicures and pedicures. Yeah. In other words, pampering.
Yes.
Right? In my experience, pampering has never been a problem for me. I will over-pamper myself, and I will sit there and play video games and eat Jersey Mike all day long, because you were talking about, like, I'm going to enjoy life. I'm going to enjoy life. How'd that work?
No.
Because if doing what I was in the mood to do actually made me happy, I would have been the happiest person in the world. But doing what I feel like doing doesn't turn out well for me. I end up not being pleased with myself because I overdo it. I overdo the enjoying life.
The indulgence.
So each day I have a list of things that I do, and hitting the gym for an hour and a half, prayer and scripture, meditation, stretching,
Like there's a regiment that if I do these things, I feel pretty good about myself.
Yeah.
And my mental health is good. If I don't, it isn't.
How long did you stop?
I guess it was like 4 or 5, or it was like 5 or 6 years.
5 or 6 years. And so you were doing.
So your 6 a.m. is part of that ritual.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I did between those, like I said, I was doing like Spartan races, and so doing those, you feel really accomplished.
Sure.
And I was playing hockey, and that was great, but it wasn't quite the same thing. Let alone, like hockey was also it's a beer league, and it was like a weekend thing. So coming back to this has definitely given me that release in it. And I was also like, I've thought about writing or blogging or doing something about this, but it's kind of like, the last 200 years of society in the West is so different than the previous 6,000.
Right.
Right. And like men are used to the struggle.
Exactly.
And we're used to working with our hands and all that stuff. And I'm not begrudging. I'm not trying to elevate blue collar work over white collar work or anything like that. It's just an acknowledgement that our society has changed so rapidly that we've had no way of kind of counteracting the good with the bad. And my thought with like jiu-jitsu is like, men need this.
Yeah.
And I've thought about like really writing about that of like, I'm not trying to advocate only for jiu-jitsu. I think it's just the most accessible that gives you the most you want. Of you need men in particular need to be able to compete. They need to be pressured. They need to have expectations foisted upon them. And that, like to your point about mental health, one of the things like I cringe a little bit is like, I'm glad we're talking about mental health, but it's always we need to placate.
No.
Right.
No.
It's not that.
At all.
Yeah. It needs to be, we need to challenge, like men and women's mental health looks very different.
Of course.
And I really feel for women today because I hear very few voices on the women's side saying we need to engage in like things that really elevate.
Being assertive with each other.
Yes. But men, we have a lot more of it. It's just, I wish it was a little bit like Rogan. I think Rogan has helped so many men. I do wish, I hope he comes to Christ because short of the gospel, I think it's always going to fall a little bit short. And we don't have to get into that whole conversation, but I think this is why I like somebody like Jordan Peterson, who I don't think preaches a full orb gospel, but he read the 12 steps or the 12, what was his book? 12 something, 12 years, whatever.
Yeah.
But all of it is like,
scriptural.
First thing is, yes, it's, even if it's not explicit, it's like take responsibility. That's the first thing he talks about. And we need that.
Right.
And I think martial arts provides that in a very unique way. It's like when a guy kind of, me and Philip joke about this. It's like when we get the memory photos on Facebook, and I wanted to start like Xing out, like, well, that guy fell off and that guy fell off. Clearly there's circumstances in life. Like I just saw guy who used to train with Dan, taller guy, bald. Yeah. He moved. So, I mean, he left us under good reasons.
Right.
He was going to seminary. And now he's, I don't know if I think he's still training, but it's like, clearly I'm not going to begrudge that guy. But there's other, and I'm not going to begrudge anybody.
Right.
But I get really sad when I see people fall off of jiu-jitsu when it's brought so much good to their life. And it's like, there's just, you have to understand there's a mountain to climb.
Yeah.
There's a decline.
Well, there's a book that someone just he shared the title. I think it's called Try. I don't remember where. I think it follows the journey of a military guy. I don't know if he was in the SEAL team or not, but either in Iraq or Afghanistan. And every day is with his boys. Every day together, training, going out on missions, going to war. They were at war together, and then they all disperse, like the military does, right? We disperse. We go back home, but we're missing.
I wonder how much of the PTSD of the veterans that the veterans go back, especially the ones that acted, war zone, like the what they used to call shell shock, right?
Yeah.
And apparently that word was too harsh, so they called it battle fatigue, which sounds nicer for the same condition,
Right.
And now we call it post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
It's like we have linguistically taken all the badness out of it,
Yeah.
but it's the same condition. And I'm wondering how much of that is the recovering from the trauma of Wolford.
Yeah.
and how much of it is the loss and the people that you bonded with.
100%.
Well, you have to find another.
It's also like with that, you listen to the story, and I'm not competent to speak to it.
Sure, me either.
No, but I will say when you read World War II stories, and it's like I think at one point they also called it like foxhole syndrome or something like that. And what they didn't, I don't think they've connected, is that you're going through high intensity, high pressure. You're also, the flight or flight is kicked in. Yeah. Your brain is not supposed to go through that for extended periods. But what happens is when you're in those periods, you bond with people.
Like almost Stockholm, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's a trauma bond.
Yeah.
And that is why I love jiu-jitsu so much. That's why with the Unify Foundation, that is, you know, I'm not taking anything away from Excel account. I'm not, because Valdez is the one that got me on the track, lost weight, just...
He was the one that originated. Yeah, originated. You owe everything. You wouldn't be where you are without him.
Right. I mean, I will always have his back no matter what. But getting into jiu-jitsu now, and just like every day is a battle on the mats, right? I mean, over at Excel, you learn your combos, you do your kicks. You're not pressuring.
Pressure testing.
Every single day you're on the mats at jiu-jitsu, you're pressure tested. And I think that the camaraderie that you build for constantly trying to murder each other, I think there is something that
but not really.
But yes,
murder each other, but not real.
Right.
Well, and it's also,
there's a perfect magic in that sweet spot.
And I don't think I can accurately give it do justice with my words, because it's awesome.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about your blue belt.
I wanted to go.
Let's go into this, because Chance has got this. I remember when you got your blue belt, and this was, and was it? Well, that was 2 years ago.
It was December. Yeah, it was almost 2 years.
So almost 2 years ago, and I remember at I think it was a belt promotion. You didn't get your belt. I think. So I'm trying to remember, and then I remember how down you were. I didn't say anything. I just witnessed it. I just witnessed how down you were. And then I think you were promoted like the next day, was it? Or maybe the next class?
It was something
next week.
There was just, I had, okay. So here's the unfiltered. So Greg, Philip, I've told you guys this stuff. I'm sorry.
Don't worry, I'll submit you.
Yes, they will, absolutely will. So I had a weird association with putting on a white belt, because the first place I trained at was Combat Jiu-Jitsu, South Minneapolis. Love that place. They did a different style. And so they actually have more of a karate style. It's like, if you want to need this belt, you got to get here. But we don't really care. It's your call. So I think I got to what they called like an orange belt, which would be like akin to blue belt. They had a blue belt, but it was higher. Anyway. And when I started training down here, I was training with Mark Lehman, who was a world champion guy. And I'm training with these national champion wrestlers. We didn't give a crap about belts. We're fighting in the UFC. So I didn't really get any belts for a long period. I didn't really care for a while either. But coming back to it, when I did later in life, I was like, well, if I'm coming back to this, I'm getting my black belt. Like, full stop. I'm not, and I told my wife, I'm like, if I'm doing this is a journey. Like, I'm doing this until we get that.
Yeah.
Probably longer, but obviously, like, I'm not stopping until I get that black belt, because that's martial arts has meant so much to my life, and it's really woven into. I mean, I don't know her. I don't move to Texas if I don't.
Right.
My kids don't exist.
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but here's the weird part for me is, like, I've never felt comfortable with the belt I have, because like the first time I stepped on in the Baltimore gym, I put Philip in a really good darce. I don't know if he remembers this. I was thinking about this a couple of days ago. Okay. And it was probably like one of those moments. He was probably like, this freaking, right. You know, it was like one of those. So he didn't tap, but it was really good. I remember it. And I got him, like, I think I had him in one a couple of days later. It was just like, because I still remembered kind of how I like to roll and like what I like to do. And so I just didn't feel comfortable in my own skin or with my belt, because I'm like, I feel like a sandbanger. And I feel like it's disingenuous to represent me in this way. So it wasn't so much about the belt I had in terms of like, I want to line up here or here. Right. It was more like, hey guys, I don't want to seem like that jerk who's been doing this. Like, I mean, it is what it is. It's like, I've been doing this a lot, right? Yeah. And so white belt was a real struggle. And I think when I finally got, like, Greg gave me, part of it was also like, I'm only training with Phil. At the time, I didn't know this. Philip, we're very respectful of the system. Philip was only first degree or second degree black belt. He couldn't promote. That was the system that they had. And so I was kind of like, well, why am I, we're not striping up anyone. Like, what's going on? I want to kind of advance. I've been here for a year. And then he finally pulled me aside. He's like, dude, I can't promote. You got to come to the, Greg would promote you probably if you came to later classes, but also Greg doesn't see you. So, but he would always tell me, like, you don't have to worry about it. Like, it's coming. And I mean, he told me for about 6 months, like, you won't finish the year, bro. You won't finish he just kept saying that. And so then when I finally got it, I was partially hoping that they were like, maybe they see me a little bit higher than a blue. Because I'm tapping a lot of our blues, I'm getting a lot of our purples, I'm getting a couple of our browns, and I've tapped 1 or 2 of our black belts. So I'm like thinking in my head, it's one thing. So when that happened, I was like somewhat disappointed because I just don't feel like, again, it's like, that's where, like we were talking earlier, like your blue belt represents your belt represents a different journey. I'm now at the point now where I'm like, I feel pretty stout. Like, I'm not worried about it as much. I'll tell you right now, I feel pretty solid, or I feel like the day I get my purple belt, I'll feel like it'll be a relief. Got it. Because it'll feel like I kind of match that. So, and to speak to even that point a little bit further, so I competed a couple weeks ago?
Maybe about we rolled Ashton.
I did roll Ashton. So I'm doing this class, or I'm doing this competition, and I signed up for gi and no gi. And I'm sitting there like, well, I'm 222. I'm way overweight, but I've got the skills. So I'm kind of like in my head, I'm like, I'm representing our academy. So if anyone says anything, it's on Philip and Greg, right? Like if anyone's like, that guy, I know that guy. He's been doing this a lot longer. Because of course I'm walking around and I run into the guys that run like Genesis and some other guys. And then the first guy I competed against, I'm like looking at his coach and I'm looked at the academy. It's like Hicks MMA. I'm like, you're Marcus Hicks, right? He's like, yeah. I'm like, dude, I trained with Shane Roller when he fought you. And we just had a big laugh about it. But it's like, that was like 12 years ago. So now I'm like, in my back of my head, I'm like, is this guy thinking I'm a sandbagger? And of course, like, I'm like, it's on Philip and Greg. I'm representing the academy. That's their goal.
You don't have to carry.
Yeah. So I wasn't worried about it then, but it is one of those things where, I do have a wealth of experience and I want to be properly contextualized with it now. And it's not so much about, this is where I've now felt more comfortable because our 6 a.m. class is very, it's a very close group of guys. Everybody knows. I think if everyone asks, they're like, yeah, Kyle's a tough role.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be anything. It doesn't have to be anything more than that.
Yeah.
When I was a white belt, it was that same context, but it felt worse because I was like, right, that whole deal. Right. And, but what helps now is like when I travel and I'm going against, like I was in Arizona and I got one of their brown belts in a darce. And it was just like, he didn't stare at me. He's just like, man, great job. Right. Great job. Is all that. And, I'm not as worried about it now, but definitely it probably wasn't until this year that I really like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I want to end it. This has been awesome.
Yeah.
Great. I'm done. But you had done the wrestling stuff, right? Weren't you like a promoter? Weren't you?
Yeah. We didn't even touch on that.
We didn't touch on this.
Wow.
Yeah. So let's end the podcast on that story. I want to hear this story.
So Steven, my coach, this is in 2020, so I hadn't been training for a couple of years by this point. And he reaches out to me because he knows that I do some marketing stuff and I'm in sales. So he brings me on board to talk about promoting. He's promoted a couple boxing shows. And he wanted me to help out. And somehow in the discussion of that, I think it was because we had brought in an announcer who also did announcing for pro wrestling. And him and me are huge pro wrestling marks. So we were just like, we wanted to ask questions about like, how's the backstage work? Do you know this guy? Like we were asking all these questions. So this is like early 2020. We're talking about setting up this card later in the year. And then COVID happens. And so we're just kind of sitting around like, well, I guess what do we do? Do we just wait? Do we wait for the commission? Through this guy, we found out pro wrestling doesn't need a commission. You don't need a license. And so we decided to put on a pro wrestling card instead. And it was a huge joy. I got to hold the same belt Ric Flair held.
Oh, wow.
All that stuff. And it was a great time. And me and Steven decided to go separate ways for just some differences, like nothing combative, but it was just like differences of opinion on how to run the show and different stuff like that. So I promoted pro wrestling for about 4 years. It stopped last year. March was our last show. And I just loved it. It was so great. And the last thing we did, the boys were like, dude, this is your last show. Like all these wrestlers I've been working with for years, they're like, let's have you do something. So I took year before that, I had taken a move. I took a choke slam, which was awesome. It's like I did it on a fallout. It didn't hurt. Had guy that was in the WWE he was backstage. He came up to me. It's just like, dude, you took that better than some guys I've ever seen. Which I was like, it's all about the break falls. So so the last show we did, I was like, well, where we're gonna go at, we're gonna go with a bang. So I took the same guy choke slammed me through it wasn't a table, but it was like the breakaway. It wasn't a breakaway. It was a door, because that's a little wrestling trick. So if you want to save money, you don't buy a table, because you do have to rig tables a little bit depending on
because you use the like an interior,
like that door there.
Yeah, an interior.
You could probably I could probably go,
because you can break it.
Yeah, I'll show it to you.
Yeah.
And I went through that, and then but right before that, it was such a good setup. It was like we did a ref bump, so the first ref goes down. Here comes the second ref. Good guy gets knocked down. Bad guy gets knocked down also. The manager, who I had a rivalry with, he comes in the ring. He knocks out the second ref. So nobody's down except for that guy. He's waving in, and it's just perfect. Like, without any prompt, the crowd is like, we want Kyle. Like, and so I came out, and I let him slap me, and then I decked him, and then I threw out a knee bar, and then I got picked up and like it was perfect. It was the best way
to make tables out of those. That's so great. Because obviously you have to do it right.
Those are like
it's not nothing. It's not nothing.
Wait till I show you. It looks brutal. But it didn't hurt at all.
Yeah.
So I just, of course, sorry to kill the business.
No,
it's good.
What'd you do to get? Would you?
So I would love to get back to wrestling. I would do that in a heartbeat. If I owned a facility that could do it, we'll do it in a heartbeat, because the thing that kills it is the cost, the overhead, the venues. Like, I'm helping a guy. There's a fan who would come to all our shows. He reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, can you help me do a show in August?" I'm like, yeah. And he's going through his budget stuff. I'm like, he's getting nickeled and dimed on the venue. And it's like, that's why we would do like breweries. We did a high school. We did a theater, and the theater was the most expensive by far. And they were the ones like, well, we gotta have this, we gotta have this, gotta have this. And it's just like, well, now I've lost a couple thousand on this. And for pro wrestling's like, it's having a resurgence right now, but like, you can go to a local indie show. There's one nearby called Metroplex. They own the building. It's a giant facility. They'll teenage girl that goes. Oh, okay, yeah. So they'll still have like, 100, 200 people on like good shows,
and they can still make it.
Yeah, they can make it, but it's a student show, and it's a bunch of other things. So the quality's still really good for that. It's like single A baseball, or double A baseball. It's you're not expecting WWE quality. So, but I miss it like crazy. I do. My wife even came up to me like a couple weeks back, and she's like, you know what I miss? Wrestling. So we still have some relationships. I was just texting a guy who I consider still a friend, and he was his name's TJ Perkins. He does jiu-jitsu. Okay. So we were just texting a couple days ago.
So give us just a nugget, man. Go back to I say fat Kyle. 5 year break Kyle.
Yeah.
If you're in that, like, if you're somebody that's listening, enjoying life.
Yeah.
You're just enjoying life.
Give the Evilist, man.
I say this with people that know my full story, struggles in marriage, struggles in work, struggles wherever. The only regret I have in life, is stepping away from jiu-jitsu. And even if I had just stayed with just Muay Thai, I don't think I'd been as satisfied for a variety of reasons. But for sure, that's the only regret I have in life, is stepping away from jiu-jitsu. And because I don't, where would I be now? I don't even know. But beyond that, I lost the sense of fulfillment. I lost the sense of purpose. And even though I did have, have a hobby, have camaraderie, have all that stuff, and I had some of that, but just was never the same for me. And that's the regret I have. So I would tell guys that are just like, that the movie Fight Club and also the book. The book is a little bit better on this. You know, that guy's, I think he's like an atheist, so his worldview is all bent. But there's that guy hits on a lot of truth in that book.
He does.
It's like what was the thing he says? We're the men without a battle. Our battle is a spiritual battle, something like that. He's like, he hits something there, and that's true. And you think about like the guys sitting in their office that, you know, I work with a couple of people in their office, and you just see that it's like, I wonder if this is the happiest they are, and they don't like work. They don't like work, but their
Lights are on, but never his own. Yeah.
yeah, and now, you know, you almost just want to kind of grab them like, sure, do you need something in life? And I clearly want to give them the gospel first, but even like sometimes it's like you need to have people softened up to something. And it's
Sometimes
like,
you can get them through jiu-jitsu, and that's the circuit route.
yeah. But it's just like there really is a dearth of people in America and in the West who, you know, go to work hard. I am all for that. Jimmy was telling me on the way here how like a day like today where it's just raining and it's crazy. It's like these are good days, not because they're fun. They're challenging, right? And I want people to embrace that. Like, I really want people to stop thinking of work as this separate thing from
Right. Right.
but with a caveat and say, you are a full-orbed person. This is the book I read last year called Full Time by David Botson. He spoke at a conference I did last year. His whole thing is the meaning of life is work. If you look at Genesis, what was Adam called to do? He's called to work. And I think that we do ourselves such a disservice when we start separating things. So, Chance, karate guy, Chance, podcaster, Chance, you know, so on and so forth, all these different things. No, you're just Chance.
Right.
You're just Chance. I am just Kyle, I do jiu-jitsu, I do business, I'm a father. But when we start doing these things of separating ourselves, it's really unhealthy. So when you think of work as this one thing,
Right.
it somewhat becomes elevated higher. And if you don't like your job and you don't like what you do and you don't like to work, which is the bigger problem. The bigger problem is not your job, it's how you feel about work. I think people get really depressed because they actually hate who they are.
Yeah. These need to be facets, not compartments.
Right. So with, you know, talking to myself a few years ago, I always said, like, do not quit this.
Yeah.
And I found other stuff that was great, but for me in particular, it's like, I'd be much more healthy if I was doing just jiu-jitsu and committed to that. And martial arts, there is a spiritual nature.
Yeah, there is.
Unlike anything else.
Well, hey, listen, you saw it on the group or on our jiu-jitsu chat yesterday about, hey, in case no one has told you today, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you, man. Yeah, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of your journey. Like 34,
I got time.
Yep, study a ton, but no, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Keep showing up, man.
I love when I see you. Every time on Mondays lately, I'll peer through the glass and I'll see him just chatting. I'm like, the Klaus is in the house. Like, I get so excited because I love working with Jimmy. And it goes universally. It's like when you see that person, whether they're a challenge or not, you stare at somebody that's on the mats and you're like, all right, I'm going to roll with it. You have a bit of a problem, but you're better for doing that than if you just
Iron sharpens iron. Absolutely, that's it. Hey guys, listen. Thank you. Nothing but love. You hear the thunder going on. Kyle, thanks for showing up, man.
Thanks for having me, guys.
You heard it. He said it on. He's going to come do some light sparring with us.
Thank you. All right, guys. Love you guys. See you.
See you guys.